The first time I realized my quiet retirement was officially dead was when 2 squad cars rolled up my driveway lights, strobing across my porch like I'd robbed a bank. One of the officers stepped out, hand hovering near his belt, and said, "Sir, we got a report you're trespassing on HOA property." And right behind them, like she'd ordered the whole moment off a menu, stood Denise Halstead, the Homeowners Association president, smiling like she'd already won. I'm Jack Miller, 55, a beat-up former carpenter with a bad back and a worse patience for nonsense. I moved to a little place outside a town called Briar Glen, tucked near Hawthorne Lake, because I wanted peace, no drama, no crowds, no community governance. The kind of peace you can hear when the only sound at night is wind in the trees and the occasional owl judging you from the dark. The neighborhood was called Cedar Ridge Meadows, and yes, there was an HOA. I knew that going in. I just didn't know the HOA had a self-appointed queen who treated the whole place like her personal board game. Behind my property there was this old footpath that ran down toward the lake. People used it. Dog walkers, joggers, kids cutting through the occasional couple with matching water bottles pretending they were hikers. At first I didn't care, until I started finding trash beer cans, candy wrappers, broken glass, right where my grandkids would have been playing if they ever visited. One afternoon, I caught 3 teenagers standing on my side of the property line, laughing, tossing rocks at a stump like it was target practice. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just said, "Hey, pick up your mess. This is private property." One of them smirked like I'd just told a joke. He goes, "My mom runs the HOA. We can walk wherever we want." Then he looked me up and down and added, "You can't stop us." That was my first taste of Denise's influence, and it wasn't subtle. That evening, right around dinner, Denise showed up at my door. Perfect hair, bright lipstick, one of those I'm always right blazers, and a smile that never reached her eyes. She didn't introduce herself. She didn't have to. The energy alone was like a name tag. She said, "I heard you threaten my son." Like it was a fact, not a question. I told her I asked him to pick up trash on my land. That's not a threat. She tilted her head and gave me that slow, condescending blink. "That path has been used by the community for 20 years, she said. "You don't get to change that just because you moved in." I tried to keep my voice calm because people like Denise feed on reactions. "Used doesn't mean owned," I said. "And it definitely doesn't mean your kids can treat my land like a dumpster." Her smile sharpened. "We'll see," she said, and turned around like she was dismissing a waiter. So the next morning I did what any tired, stubborn man would do when he's being pushed around on his own property. I put up a sign. Bright red, clean lettering, impossible to miss. "No trespassing violators will be prosecuted." And because I've built things my whole life, I didn't slap it onto a flimsy stake. I set the post in concrete, deep, solid, permanent. The kind of permanent that says I'm done asking nicely. By lunchtime, I had an official-looking letter in my mailbox from Cedar Ridge Meadows Homeowners Association Enforcement and Compliance. I had to laugh. Because who even gives themselves that title? It claimed the footpath was a community easement, that I was obstructing access, and that I was to remove my sign within 48 hours or face fines. Then it slid in a nice little accusation harassment of minors like they were seasoning a steak. I stood there in the sun with that letter in my hand thinking, I paid for this land. I pay the taxes. I maintain it. I'm the one picking up other people's garbage. And somehow I'm the villain. The next day the police came. 2 officers walked up my driveway like they belonged there. One of them said, "We need you to remove the sign. We're getting complaints." I said, "Complaints from who?" He didn't answer directly. He glanced over his shoulder toward Denise's SUV parked at the curb like a spectator at her own show. "From the HOA, he said. "They're saying you're blocking a public access." I felt my stomach drop. That cold, heavy feeling you get when you realize a loud person has pulled in official uniforms to do their arguing for them. So I asked, "Do you have a warrant, a court order? Anything that says, my property isn't my property?" They didn't. They had a complaint and a Karen with a clipboard. One officer sighed like I was making his day harder. "Sir, just take it down for now." For a second I almost did. Not because I thought I was wrong, because I was tired. Tired of the letter. Tired of the attitude, tired of feeling like the rules only applied to people who didn't scream the loudest. That night I sat on my porch staring at that sign like it was a bad decision nailed into the ground. I thought, maybe I'm being stubborn. Maybe I should just let them walk. Maybe peace is worth more than pride. And then I remembered the beer cans, the broken glass, the kid's smirk when he said, "You can't stop us." And I felt that old familiar anger bubble up because that wasn't community. That was entitlement wearing a polite name. I called my buddy Ethan Clark, a local attorney I'd known for years. He listened quietly, then said, "Jack, stop arguing with them. Start documenting." I said, "Documenting what? Their nonsense." He goes, "Exactly. Put up cameras. Let them hang themselves with their own behavior." So I did. I installed 2 cameras, one angled at the sign, one covering the path. Nothing fancy, just clear video and decent audio. The kind of setup that doesn't care who's lying. Less than 24 hours later, I got a motion alert. 2 men in polo shirts with Cedar Ridge Meadows logos walked right up to my sign like they were on a maintenance call. One of them looked around, then pulled out a pry bar. I watched him wedge it under the post grunt and start levering the concrete like he owned the ground. And then, clear as day, his buddy said, "Denise wants this thing gone. Just rip it out." I swear I felt my pulse in my ears, not because I was shocked, but because I finally had what Denise couldn't talk her way out of. The next morning I walked down there and the sign was gone, post-concrete everything. Just a torn-up patch of dirt and a neat little trail of footprints leading back toward the neighborhood like a confession. I called the police again, and this time I didn't ask politely. I said I need an officer to take a report for vandalism and theft, and I have video. Funny how quickly the tone changes when you say the words, "I have video." While I was waiting, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. No name, just a message. "You're not crazy. She's been pushing this easement story for months. Check the attachments." I opened it, and my jaw actually tightened. There were screenshots of internal HOA emails, a historic easement document that looked like it had been edited, and a short audio clip, Denise's voice cold, irritated, unmistakable. "I don't care what the deed says. We're taking that access back." So now I had 3 things Denise never expected me to have: video, internal receipts, and her own voice. When the officers showed up again, Denise was right behind them, of course. She strutted up my driveway like the place was hers. She said, "He's harassing residents and blocking community access. He's escalating." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult her. I just said, "Before we talk, I'd like to report that my sign was stolen by HOA representatives, on camera." Denise blinked, but her smile held barely. "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "No one touched his sign." So I pulled my phone out, hit play, and let her hear her own little empire cracking. The audio came through clean. "Denise wants this thing gone." One officer's eyebrows lifted. The other one stepped closer to the screen, watching the pry bar dig into the post. No arguing. No he said, she said. Just reality. Denise's face changed fast. The confident smirk slipped into something tighter, meaner. "That video could be edited," she said, like she'd rehearsed it. I shrugged. "Then you won't mind an investigation?" That's when one of the officers finally looked at her and said, "Ma'am, if this is true, this is theft and vandalism. That's not an HOA issue." And Denise, this grown woman, actually tried to talk over a uniformed officer on my porch. "You don't understand, he doesn't own that strip. It's community easement." So I said the quiet part out loud. "Show me the recorded easement," I told her. "Not a photocopy, not something you printed at home. Show me the county record." She froze for half a second, just long enough. Ethan filed for an emergency injunction that same week. I turned over the video, the email attachments, and the audio clip. The county records office confirmed what I already knew: my deed didn't magically change because Denise wanted it to. Then things moved quickly, the way they always do when someone's lies finally hit paperwork. There was a special HOA meeting, emergency session they called it, like they were the victims of a natural disaster. I didn't even go inside. I waited in the hallway, leaning against the wall, listening to muffled voices rise and fall behind the door. At one point the door swung open and I saw Denise standing there, still in her blazer, still trying to hold on to control like it was a steering wheel in a crash. A man I hadn't met before, county investigator, plain clothes, handed her a document and asked her to confirm her name. Denise's mouth opened, and nothing came out. Her hands shook when she took the papers. Not dramatic shaking, real shaking. The kind that happens when your brain finally realizes it can't bully its way out of consequences. She looked at me like she wanted to burn a hole through my skull, then looked down at the page again like the words had personally betrayed her. And I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just stood there breathing, feeling the weight lift off my chest for the first time in weeks. Because the truth is, people like Denise don't stop when you compromise. They stop when the world finally tells them no in a language they can't interrupt. Lesson: document everything because the loudest liar folds fastest when the camera's rolling.